Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for this second video on this tutorial. In the first one, we pretty much did all the setup that the actual functionality of the app needs, essentially. We got our, weather data from this API. Obviously, we didn't have it use our own location or enter in our location, which we could all do all that. But I covered a lot of that in my last tutorial series, which I'll link probably in the description below. And if you need to know any of that, we can do that. But this is mostly about the API itself. So what we do want to do is a couple things. For one, we should make this a completion. If you're unfamiliar with completions, it lets me know when this information has been returned. In a normal situation, you don't need to do that. In this case, we are making a web call, and since we are not gonna freeze the app until the weather comes back, the user can still interact with it. We do what's called a completion, and then essentially when this is done, and rather than print it, we would say, this is not how you spell completion. We would say completion, and then it expects one parameter, which is the weather. And I said it's a weather type, so it's weather.currently, not the weather response, but this weather struct. Cool. And then here, this function is going to change. So I want to say fetcher, get current weather. Now it'll have a completion. So then this will be the weather that we returned. And then we might not have to do this, but what we're going to do is, since we do this work on what's called a background thread, because we're getting the information from the web and it's not happening immediately, it's happening asynchronously. We have to specify. We have to specify when we get back that information that now whatever we do, we want to do on the main screen. So actually, we'll just say update UI, which obviously doesn't do anything yet because it doesn't exist. After view did load, I'll say make this a function called update UI. So that's what it'll be calling. This should complain to say that we're inside of a closure. This is our closure, and it doesn't know what I'm talking about. So we have to say self.updateUI. And then just for sanity check, we'll just throw a few labels on the screen real quick. Why not? And we'll populate it. Make sure our completion works the way we want it to. Make sure we're updating it on the right thread, which seems like I am. And then we'll go about adding the watch kit and go from there. Cool. Here's our screen. There's a bunch of different ways to add labels. I just use, the storyboard, interface builder, whatever. It's simple. We're going to search for a label down here. We'll say, we'll call this temp. How about for now? I don't know why I'm doing any of this. I'm just wasting time here. Okay, we'll throw this, we'll do control, press and hold, and then we'll say center horizontally. I'll also control press, drag, and drop to the top. I'll say top space to safe area. Hit this here, it'll update. Now we got blue solid lines, we're all good to go. I'm gonna hold option, grab and pull off to grab another one. Then I'll say center relative to that, and hold shift to also select vertical spacing and add constraints to that. This one will name a humidity. Yeah. And I forgot what our weather has. I forgot what else it comes with. Humidity, summer. Okay, so. And we need a summary. And that we won't actually, I'll just call it summary, but I don't think there'll be like actual label on it. Cool. Hit enter. Make sure that our labels they're named correctly. And then I'll drag off from here, control, press, drag, drop it over here, say temp label. Bingo. Humidity. Humid label. Labal. It's gonna bother me too much and I have to change it. This is one way to change it back. We can just drag off the plus and then reconnect. And we can verify this last tab for connections that it's hooked back up. Cool, so that's temp, this is humidity, and then this will be our summary label. Cool, these are all outlets. And what we need to do is pass in a weather object to the UI. We could also have a variable that we update, that we return, but let's just do it this way. Let's say update weather, takes weather, then this will call, I'll put this underscore in the front. If you're not aware, that means I don't have to put in the parameter because I think it's overkill. The parameter name, I mean. And then when we do get this, we'll say temp label.text equals, let's do it like this, temp, leave a space, and then we can put our actual variable in between that backslash and between the parentheses and say temp. And also I want to make this an integer because if I remember correctly, it was like, it was just too much, it was way too long. And then I'll say the same thing essentially for the humid label. Just copy and paste this to save time. Humid label, weather.humidity. It's also a double, we're going to convert it to int, no problem. And then summary label.text equals, I should probably change this as well. Humidity, yeah. Equals just it itself, so weather.summary. Cool, cool. I think we can select all the labels and just center it. It's because I'm OCD. By aligning it to the center. And then I'll hit play again. And this time we just made a couple changes. Now it's going to return here on the main queue, on the main thread. It'll update our UI. Our UI, now that it exists, will update these labels accordingly. And now we can look here rather than at the print statement in console. Cool. 1059, humidity 0, clear. Simple, doesn't look beautiful, but it works. Let's get on to the meat of what we're doing here. What we have to do now is go to File, New, and Target. Pretty simple. We're going to go to the watchOS tab here, and we're going to hit WatchKit app. Also very simple. Call it whatever we want. This is what I believe is going to be displayed on the watch itself. So I'll say weather tutorial watch. Not great. Uncheck these. We're not going to do any notifications or complications. Make sure the right project selected. If you have like CocoaPods or anything in your project, which you wouldn't if you're following along, this sometimes is selected wrong. And so is this one. So leave those. Make sure it's Swift. Hit finish. And when you do, you'll see this message. Click activate. And you're going to see these two new places. Essentially, what you have to what you need to know is the controller for the watch. The same way we have a view controller here is this interface controller, right there under the watch extension. Let me close this extra window. It looks essentially the same. Some of the things are named differently. But it's essentially the same thing. This extension delegate is just kind of like this app delegate that we have here. This is where you do anything that has to do with actually launching the app, something that you want to do in the background usually. And then here is where we actually build the interface for the watch itself. Just like our main storyboard, this is our interface.storyboard. And this assets is where we would keep anything inside of any images that we want to share between the app and the watch. We would also throw it in that assets folder. We could also throw it here, and then I believe if you just add it as a target, it would work just fine as well. So what we need to do just to be able to use this weather fetcher class rather than re-implement it, which you technically could, it would be very wasteful to do so, is to make sure that we check right here under targets. When I click on weather fetcher, the extension that we have is now one of the targets. So inside the interface controller, when I actually say, we could do it in the will activate, I can actually say the same thing and say let fetcher either weather fetcher, or at least it should, and then fetcher dot, I need it to autocomplete so it don't look like I'm wrong. There you go. Get current weather. It's a weather type. That should still work. It'll return the weather, and then we don't have anything to update. That was a motorcycle. Sorry about that. We don't have anything to update, so what we're gonna do real quick is put some stuff in the UI here. This is gonna look a little bit different. For the most part, there's similar things in here, but you're a little bit limited in how you can set them up. There's cool things that are specific to Apple Watch, like activity ring, and they specify timers and like made a few things a lot easier. What we need right now is a group. So groups you don't really have the freedom to put them wherever you want. So what you would do is just drag it. This would be our first group. What I'm going to do is make it a vertical layout. And then what I'm going to start doing is adding labels to it. So this is kind of like, what's it called? Stacks, I believe it's called. Let me double check while we're in here. Yeah, stack views. So this is just the same way as stack views in iOS. If I left it at horizontal, it would be a horizontal stack view. Vertical would be a vertical stack view. If you're unfamiliar with stacks or stack views, or in this case, it's called a group, when I throw items in here, which we're going to put 3 labels like we did for the app itself, when you throw it in there, you put it into the group. If I keep putting it into the group, it's just going to stack them for me. It's going to vertically align them. What I'm going to do with these real quick is center them as far as alignment, but width I should also do, here it is, alignment. I can set this to center. That'll center it up. Cool. For this, I'll say temp. For this, I'll say humidity. And for this, I will say nothing, but we'll just call it some right here. And then we're just going to hook it up the same way you would hook up anything else, really. That's kind of the cool part. I don't know why we're on internal. This happens sometimes. Just go to automatic, hit interface controller. This is what we want. We'll drag this label, it's a temp label. Cool. And then humid label. So you can see we can use the same, outlet names as we did in the other one. Since they are separate view controllers, they don't collide anyway. But we can use the same weather that we used before. So in this one, actually curious. I want to see what happens if I don't make sure to do it on the main queue. So I'll say self.temp label. So this is not a UI label. It's a WK interface, WatchKit interface label. So the way you set text on it is a little bit different. That's one small thing. You say set text rather than .text. And then it takes an optional string. In this case, we can just say what we did before, but we gotta set it up. So we'll say temp, and then like this, Then we convert to int again. Then we're going to say weather dot temp, I believe. So we named it. And I'll say self dot humid label. Let's set text. Too lazy to go back to the other one to copy it. Humidity. I'm so bad with spelling sometimes. It's ridiculous. Set text. Didn't throw this parentheses in there. Cool. Self dot summary label dot set text weather dot summary. Cool. So when activate, the method is called when watch view controller is about to be visible. This should update. And I'm missing a parenthesis somewhere here for sure. Humidity. There. There. Integer, integer. Value of type doesn't have this because it's spelled wrong. While talking about it, I spelled it wrong. Alright. Looks like it's just about that time. We can run this and see if it works. Now, to be fair, I had some issues running this the first few times I tried. I changed up a few settings. I'm going to show you in a second. Should run for me fine, but for you, you might have some issues starting up the editor. One, in the weather tutorial, if you go to weather tutorial watch, you'll see that here for skip install, the default is yes. We don't want that. We want to click yes. That'll install it on the watch and launch it, which it normally does not. Loading right here. Cool. And then the second setting, this might not really be related, but the last time I had a working application on the watch, I was on a different on a different OS deployment target. I was on 4.0, and right now I can go up to 4.3, which my current watch in the simulator is currently at. But I put those back down and it seemed to work. Let's see if it's installing here. Almost done installing. Sweet. We should also, just before we finish this video, just throw maybe some kind of icon in here. I might have one that I can steal and use from the last time I made a weather application. I don't know how good it's going to look, but weather assets, clear day. Maybe we can throw that in. Oh, need that. Copy, paste. Sweet. All right, it's installing. That didn't take too long. It's a little finicky. It works a lot better if you install it on an actual phone and then it just syncs with Apple Watch if you have one. But I'm hoping this pops open, or I could just click it. No? Yeah? No? Let's click it. Loading. I don't know what's up with this whole loading thing. We have to look at that. Why it's doing that. I mean, I guess it kind of does already. Yeah, I was just looking at my watch to see if that happens with other phones, and it seems to. Alright, that looks like it loaded in. Good to go. I'm going to throw this icon in there, see if it just works. Let's give it a try. And I think when I put that icon there, it'll replace that, wow, that's not what I intended. These are not what I intended. Delete those. Make this a little less gigantic. Filling up all 13 inches of my screen. And then here is gonna look bad. Probably. What's the error? What's the error, man? It's 48 by 48, but should be 196 by 196. Too bad. Okay, you're just gonna have to figure it out. Let's just put those for now. Maybe that'll work. I'm very curious to see what this looks like. You can move on to the next video. This is the last thing I'm doing. In the next video, I want to swap it up and get some more relevant information. I'm thinking build failed. From what? Did not have any applicable content. Okay, well, I guess we'll just end the video here. We'll deal with icons later. Might not even put them for this video, but it works fine. What I want to do in the next video is get some of this more relevant info. Like, currently has a lot of info there that we want, but typically, like on a phone watch, on an Apple Watch, I would probably want like the temperature, what the hottest is going to be that day, and the coldest is going to be that day. So I'd want to get something like the temperature max and min. This is not available in currently. It's available in the weekly weather. So in the next video, we're going to go through, figure out how to get this info in with JSON Decoder. It's a little bit tricky, rather than traditional, just like JSON parsing, just because you have to make an object for this, and then an object for this, and then an array of objects for this. And I'll show you in the next video. Please join me, like and subscribe if you like what's going on. We'll keep doing these tutorials. See you in the next video.